ready to go. I see it's recording. Let me know when we're streaming. And oh, now it says streaming.
All right, folks, thank you for your patience. But yes, by all means, we're good to go. We're good to go.
Thank you
So we're
so much.
streaming and we're recording.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Call the meeting to order. And I would like to quickly acknowledge that many of us are gathered on the territory of the Anishinaabe people, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, who are known collectively as the Three Fires Confederacy. And this land is also covered by the Williams Treaties of 1923. And I think as a settler myself, I try to remember the ongoing colonial violence and the history of violence on this land, especially when it comes to topics of the environment and how Indigenous peoples have stewarded this land since time immemorial. So let's get started. We do have some guests around the table. So I think we'll do a quick round table. Just introduce yourself, who you are, why you're here, and maybe a quick, how are you doing? A little check-in. I know things are crazy and tough right now. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's totally fine. But I'll give it a go. So my name is Keenan Elwin. I am the Ward 2 Councillor for the City of Barrie, and I'm the chair of the committee. I've been struggling this past week a little bit. I mean, I'm frustrated. I think I'm more frustrated than I've ever been since the beginning of the pandemic. So trying to work through that, but happy to see all your faces. This group always makes me feel better. So I'll pass it on to John.
Great. Thanks, Keenan. So yeah, John Northcote. I'm was born in Barrie, raised in Barrie. I've come back to Barrie recently. Well, I guess not recent anymore, but yeah. So I have a transportation consulting company in Barrie. Yeah, so, as far as how things are going right now, I think we're pretty fortunate here. But yeah, I'm really happy with the warm weather. I guess maybe we'll put it that way. It's really nice getting that winter jackets off and moving forward that way. So our family and our kids are really happy with the warm weather. Anyway, so and I'll pass it on to Anne Marie since I blew her name last time.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. Anne Marie Kungel, Ward 3 City Councillor. I'm trying to remember last time we did an update. So since then, I think I'm now on Communities in Bloom. So just as an awareness piece around some other aspects, I'm feeling actually pretty good. I think it has to do to dressing up in a human-sized bunny costume yesterday and running around the city. And then spending the whole day outside staining my deck. So I think I was actually on the deck on my computer doing emails this morning for a couple hours until it got too cold. So I'm yeah, enjoying the getting out of my basement and getting out to the back deck, and nice to see spring coming in with it. Quite a lot of hope and happiness. We'll see. But tag Grant. And you might be on, there we go.
Yeah, okay. Grant, I'm from Firebird Community Cycle, which is backwards on your screen. I don't know why that is. I'm a local bicycle activist, a longtime Barrie resident for a number of different rounds. And I'm here with an ask that I'll talk to you a little bit about later. But I'm excited to see people, and that you're almost as exciting as the nice weather. So pretty good.
Thanks, Grant. Then we'll go to Jerry. He's here as well from Firebird. You're on mute.
Hi, I'm Jerry Poisson. I'm also with Firebird Community Cycle. I'm here just to assist with Grant and answer any other questions you might have about Firebird and the topic we're going to discuss. I'm also a former member of the Sustainability Committee before the Active Transportation got merged in with it. So just looking forward to participating in the meeting.
Great, thanks for being here.
Morning, Jerry.
Hi, Al.
You go ahead, Al, and introduce yourself.
Al McNair, Nature Berry representative on the Sustainability Committee. And yeah, well, the warm weather, how can you complain? Well, the only reason I could complain is because I was out sweeping up all the sand and stuff and spruce needles, because we have a blue spruce on the property next door, which sheds prolifically on my driveway. But I beat it out because I sweep all the stuff up and just rake through it a bit, and then I throw it in a bin, and I can throw the sand back on the driveway next winter. So it doesn't all have to wind up in the street. So it's a little bit of recycling in a warm weather day.
Love that. That's great. Thanks, Al. We'll go to Kelly next.
Morning. My name is Kelly Patterson McGrath. I'm a member, citizen member of this committee. This is just my second meeting. So, although I did put something on the agenda today. So, yeah, I hear you, Keenan. It's crazy. Sometimes it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. So I'm very grateful for this part of the planet, honestly. And I love our city, and I love getting out and cycling and paddling and doing all those wonderful things. And I'm just really, really focusing on feeling grateful, although it is a challenge these days. I'll go to Wilf.
Good morning, everybody. I am Wilf Steimel, and I am here on behalf of Electric Vehicle Society. Yeah, also grateful for the warm weather and seeing the grass starting to come up. So we can now shift into the mode where we're complaining about having to cut grass and the heat and the humidity, and I'm actually looking forward to that. So there we go.
Thanks, Wolf. We'll go to Eric Jacoby Hawkins next.
Hello, everyone. I share Keenan's frustration with the on again, off again lockdowns. I can handle one or the other, but we keep having to change plans, and it's a lot of last minute juggling, what with people in school, both teaching and studying, and family out of town we've got plans to meet outside with, and then suddenly you can't have more than 5 people meeting outside, which is I'm not one to criticize lockdowns, but that one kind of blew me away. Anyway, it's been a frustrating bit of time, but other than that, I am currently a citizen member of this committee, but I'm hoping to become an organization member for Living Green, which is now 30 years young as Barrie's only broad-based environmental charity, citizen-run, volunteer-run organization. And I'm not sure where it might fit on the agenda, but I'm hoping to have the committee approve my request to council for that status change.
Yeah, thanks for that, Eric. I just realized I totally forgot to add that one to the agenda, but I hope Tara doesn't get mad at me for doing this, but I think we can fit it under the active transportation and sustainability webpage item. It's related to our terms of reference, and I think we could pass a motion requesting that change. Then.
That's what I was thinking too.
We'll figure that out.
Are you sure?
Well, I'm gonna try. So.
Okay, I'll talk to you about it after.
Okay, if there's an issue, then we can hold off. But yeah, we'll get to that item. Thank you. Okay, so Eric Van Wiesenbeck.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Keenan. My name's Eric Van Wiesenbeck. I'm a longtime citizen of Barrie. Grew up here, and I love Barrie. I spend a lot of time on a bicycle, active transportation, commuting, and some recreational cycling too, which as it relates to the pandemic is actually kind of a saving grace, right? I'm one of those people that every time I get on a bike, I kind of feel that excitement as, you know, when you were a kid and you first get on a bike and start rolling, that freedom, I still experience that anyway. So that's one of the reasons I'm here on the this committee. I was on the Active Transportation Barrie Committee years ago for a short period. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, and I'm a director on the Barrie Cycling Club as well.
Thanks, Eric. That's awesome. All right, I think that's it for committee members, but we do have some city staff here as well that I'd like to introduce. So let's start with Kevin Bradley. If you want to quickly introduce your role.
Hi, everyone. I am the manager of Parks Planning, which is the kind of the strategic planning arm of the parks business in the world. And you'll hear next from Kevin Rankin or soon as to what the other part of the business is. So as a parks guy through and through, I can't get enough of this weather. Even though I'm still confined to my bedroom largely and on crutches, I still got out to get some tanning and reading done on Sunday. So I'm just here to support the good work that you guys do. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin,
all right.
what's the ETA of progress on the broken leg?
Fracture clinic again in 2 more weeks. Still no weight bearing, no driving. He figures 3 to 5 months before I can put weight on it, and then another 7 months of physio before hopefully I'm back on skis next January. Thanks, Al.
Ouch. Ouch. Yes,
Go,
speedy recovery. We hope you get well soon. All right, Kevin Rankin, go ahead.
I'm Kevin Rankin. I'm the manager of Parks and Forestry Operations. So my role is the maintenance end of the parks and trees and flowers across the city. And we're currently in another wild spring of bringing on seasonal staff and trying to plan seasonal stuff amidst COVID and lockdowns on and off and changing rules. So that's our fun as of this week.
Yeah, sounds crazy. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Kevin. All right, we'll go to Mike McConnell next.
Hello, everyone. Mike McConnell here. I represent Barrie Transit. And I guess we've been busy with the spring construction season coming along, all the detours associated with that. And then also using COVID as a kind of opportunity to look to the future, to plan so we can grow our transit network better and stronger as we emerge from this. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. Brett, great tricks. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey everyone, I'm the transportation planning lead for the city, and I'm responsible for the strategic management of the city's transportation network, as well as review of all development applications in support of a multimodal approach to transportation.
Great. Thanks, Brett. And Brandy, if you'd like to provide a quick introduction, we're happy to have you here as additional support.
Thank you. I'm actually happy to be here. I've been with the city since October 2004. I initially started with the provincial offenses, and thanks to COVID, yes, we share frustration of COVID and this pandemic. Basically, I've taken on quite a few roles within the city, basically kind of becoming the human chameleon, taking on new roles and stuff like that. And here I am now as a committee support clerk. Was welcomed in here with open arms, and I'm loving every minute of it. I get to meet a lot of new people, great people, and seeing what these committees are about, because honestly, it's all education for me and I love to learn. So happy to be here. I'm here for 18 months, so you guys are stuck with me and I look forward to it.
That's great. Thanks, Brandy. All right. And Tara, just wanted to quickly introduce yourself. I think all of us know you, but if you want to come on.
Technical issues this morning, let me tell you. I'm Tara MacArthur. I've been with the city for over almost 19 years. Most of my time in this department. We look after advisory committees and committee support. Actually, all committees and council is what we do now. So, and that's how we roll. So any advice, anything procedural, let me know.
All right, thanks, Tara. Okay, let's get started with our agenda. So the first item is the Crompton Park Subcommittee, and Anne-Marie said that there really isn't an update. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that now while you have the opportunity
Sure,
ahead.
thanks, Keenan. So for Crompton, we're on the standing item. So April will be focused on resident communication, and we'll have a bit more of an update in May. May will also be focused on a little bit of, post-lockdown, hopefully, a walkthrough of that area with some of the residents and other stakeholders. And so you'll probably find there's more concrete information coming to this group in May, June.
That's great. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Okay, so since we have two guests here from Firebird, I'm wondering if the committee would be okay if we bumped that item up. Yes, I'm seeing nods. Okay, good. So we're going to bump that item up. So we've got Jerry and Grant from Firebird Community Cycle, and I'll pass it over to you to give an introduction about what you're looking for in this conversation today, maybe a bit of the background about Firebird. I don't think all of us will be completely familiar with the work that you do. And then hopefully we can have a great discussion about how to support you and how to collaborate. So take it away, Grant and Jerry.
All right. Thank you very much, Keenan. So as I said before, my name is Grant Wilson. I come from Firebird Community Cycle. We are a bicycle recyclery, if that makes any sense. We're a do-it-yourself bicycle repair shop, and we offer refurbished bikes to marginalized people in the community for discount prices. We've been operating now, I think, for over 10 years. In 2011, we got an active transportation award from your committee. So we've been around. We started at Barrie Central as a lunchtime program for at-risk youth. And then that and that was about 12 years ago. And then a couple of years after that, we became a nonprofit. And now we've been running for the last, I think 4 or 5 seasons, 4 or 5 years out of the parking lot of CMHA. So we run a bicycle recyclery. So where people donate bicycles to us, we fix them up and we get them back on the road out to community members. And we've been doing that out of sort of 2 shipping containers and the inside of CMHA. Now, since COVID, we've had to change our operations a little bit. Now, you might be aware that bicycling has taken on a huge resurgence with COVID. There's a lot of people that are out on their bicycles as a result of trying to figure out sort of entertainment plus getting around plus trying to do stuff that's safe for COVID. And so with that upsurge in bicycle enthusiasm, we've had a huge upsurge in the amount of people that want to buy bikes from us. So, but at the same time, our sort of do-it-yourself repair shop end of things we've been unable to do that. We've been unable to offer the sort of do-it-yourself repair clinics that we normally do because we don't have the space. We don't even have hand washing facilities and that sort of stuff. So, but as this demand has increased, we're trying to stay ahead of COVID, and we've been applying for a number of different grants to support us in our operations. Now, sort of the reason we come to you is we have an idea, we have a concept that we want to float to the city, and that is to put more bicycle repair stations throughout the city. Are you familiar, at City Hall, you have a bicycle repair station that Cycle Simcoe put up there. And these are huge resources to people that A, can't afford to fix their bike, and B, can't even get to places to do that. So what we'd like to do is we're applying for the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative, which is a federal grant. And we want to put bicycle repair stations at a huge number of City of Barrie locations. And these could be either, our thoughts are possibly rec centers, maybe transportation hubs, even libraries. And so what we're looking for is is permission, or at least an understanding with the City of Barrie that you would be interested in us providing the repair stations, and then hopefully there's hopefully there is funding to maintain these stations. We are going to build in some fund. We're going to build in money to do some upkeep of these things. We expect that these repair stations at first will end up somewhat damaged, and it'll take time for the city for residents to realize how important these are. So, and we want to teach from these locations. So we want to teach people how to use the repair stations in a similar way that we did a couple years ago at your rec centers. We had a pop-up shop program where we traveled to your different rec centers, and we worked with a few people then. It didn't get as many people involved as we want. So now we want to do something that's much more permanent, so that we can be serving people even when we're not there, and then offer opportunities to do bike tutorials at these spots. So yeah, I mean, that's our idea. Our idea is to do these public repair stands, and our hope is that we can work with the city to do that. Any questions?
That's great, Grant. Very exciting stuff. Just for clarification, I know there was like an early intake period for this grant.
Yeah.
And then is it in May, the second intake period?
I think Jerry knows this one better than I do, but I think we're talking June.
June 25th, I think
Yeah.
it is the second intake.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what we need, I mean, in order for the grant to go forward, what we need was commitment from the city that you're interested in us putting in the repair stations up. I imagine that there's, like, I don't fully know the process, but I imagine that the city has its own sort of protocol and how to put things up and where to go, where they need to go and all of that stuff. And we're hoping that that the city can offer us whatever support that they normally provide for such a thing, and we can basically provide the gear to put in place. And the deadline for the grant is the 25th, and basically all projects have to be complete a year following that. So we have basically a calendar year from that date to get these things in place. We don't really, we expect that this is going to take a fair bit of time. So our expectation is to get these things in as soon as possible, but we realize that it may take a couple seasons for us to get we might not get repair stands out for summer 2021, but we're really hoping that this would be ready for summer 2022.
That's great. So I'm seeing a few hands, but I think I'm going to start by going asking city staff who are here. I'm not sure who could answer this question about what that process could look like in city facilities or in city parks or transportation hubs to get a partnership like that going. Have we done something similar to that? And if so, how would we go about that? Is there anyone here who has an idea? Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
No problem. So obviously it would need a motion, and I'm thinking it might be better to have staff investigate the feasibility of doing something like that. And if it's city facilities, it could be either corporate facilities, or if it's recreation, it would be recreation services, something like that.
Okay, and do any of the staff on the call know sort of how it's gone with the bike repair stations that the city does have in terms of the cost of maintaining them? That might be a good piece of information for us to get. And if we don't have that now, that.
Yeah, I don't have that information right now, but I can definitely look into it and find out how that is going and how the procedures and everything had got that part going. So could probably follow the same path, I would think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and maybe a place to start is almost a letter of intent or something. So I see a couple hands, so we'll go to Anne-Marie, and then I've got Eric Jacoby Hawkins, then I've got Al, and then Eric Van Weesenbeck. So Anne-Marie, go ahead.
Thank you, Keenan. So I'll note this in case it helps Tara or others around shaping this if it does touch recreation. So I'll put on my Ward 3 councillor hat with the East Bayfield Community Center, and I thinking a bit about that back parking lot area, or at least to see if a station could go there. that space by the basketball courts and ball diamond might be a nice area to have it situated where it's not in a busy traffic parking lot area in the front, but may also support us doing a bit of a trial run space, or if it's a pop-up that's associated around other activities, we could actually have a safe space for kids maybe to be getting on a bike and trying it out, and refreshers before back to school. So love a broader concept too about how to use that repair stand, but also how do we do some safety reminders about being on a bike. We've got that new, last year we put in the road diet on Livingston and Stanley, which is your artery up to East Bayfield. We've got another proposal that just went out to residents on Hamner. So we're starting to see a bit of change coming in Ward 3 around residents being introduced to road diets and bike lanes. The Hamner one, I think, is coming to council this spring. I'm not sure about the timing, but in general fits in nicely. So I'm just sharing that as a point of information, but also happy to connect with you, Grant and Jerry, in general. But if this supports any type of investigation, I would be keen to explore if it would be appropriate to situate something like this at East Bayfield, if that helps to identify a recreation department as being engaged around investigating the possibility and appropriateness for that space.
Okay, that's great. Some great suggestions there. Eric Jacoby Hawkins, you were next.
So I just want to make sure everyone knows what these look like. It's basically a rack that you can hang a bike on in a number of different configurations, so you can more easily get at the parts you need. And then it's got a number of cycle repair and adjustment tools attached by thin metal cables. I think that's the one I've seen. And then I'm wondering if there's any ability to have diagrams or instructions or anything on it for people who aren't as familiar with that, or labeling the tools or something. I don't know if that can be done in a way that's durable enough to sit out there, but I'm curious to find out.
Mm-hmm. Grant, did you have some thoughts
Sure.
on that particular piece?
Yeah, we would yes, this is what you described is exactly what we're talking about, plus a pump. And I mean, Firebird is interested in this from like a bicycle perspective, but these are stands that can be used for skateboards or scooters or wheelchairs, or fix your IKEA furniture if you want to. We're all about do it yourself, and we don't discriminate. The pump could be used for pumping up your basketball at the basketball court. It's like as an organization, we provide the tools for and a little bit of the know-how, but it's oftentimes we come from like a low-level expertise level. We come from a place of where you don't need to know very much to get started. Diagrams would be nice. We probably can only fit a certain amount of stuff, but there definitely, if people have a smartphone, there's the ability to look stuff up through, say, Park Tools. They offer like great tutorials and that sort of stuff. The tools themselves are they're pretty straightforward in terms of what they are used for, but it would be nice if we had some basic things on there, like how to patch your tire, maybe how to tighten your brakes. But the do-it-yourself ethos is a little bit about we want people, if people are going to mess with their bike, we do want them to have done a little bit of research ahead of time. If it's just simply tightening something, great. If they're interested in replacing a part, then we don't think that this will cover this, that we could possibly cover all of the information that they need from that. So yeah, a bit of information for sure. And then also our plan is to teach from these spaces. So we will have posted right on the stand that we'll be here, Thursday afternoons, if you want to come by, and we'll be here, weekly on Thursday afternoons. So come by Thursday afternoons if you have something to do.
That's great. Have you priced, sorry, just quickly, have you priced out any of this yet for the grant process?
Yeah, we have priced out. I've priced out for the last round of grants, so I assume things are quite a bit more expensive. Actually, everything's gone up quite a bit. I think his name is Brendan, who did the Cycle Simcoe repair stands. He makes them. He also makes these things. So I think we're going to get them from that's a really good possibility that we're going to get them from Brendan, and they run on about the $3,000 range from him. But
okay, thanks. Okay, we have Al next.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, Grant or Jerry, I don't know if you can give us an idea of, can you just tell us where the existing ones are and how much use they're getting now, and if they're getting lots of use, that's great, or do we really know? And if they're not, is it because of are they in the right kind of locations? Like what's the magnet? Is it an East Bayfield Rec Center a great location potentially for something like this, because it then becomes a community, just another community activity that can take place there for that surrounding area. Clearly it's available to anyone, but I'm just thinking about where you get the people from. Is there one down at City Hall?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So like how much use does it get and who uses it? And
I would. I've used it. The City Hall one is tricky. It's in a location that I think really serves the people that work at City Hall. And I think it's a little bit, and it's also probably in a high, like it's in a secure location so that it's less likely to get vandalized in its spot. But I would think, we need to, in order to deal with.
Uh-oh, Grant, we lost you for a second there. You're frozen. We'll give him a second. Okay, we'll let him come back. There is also one located at the South Shore Center, and I know that one does get a fair amount of use and actually has fallen apart a bit over the years from it getting so much use, I think. So
I would think that like the one at City Hall, if it was located.
yeah.
Okay, it looks like he's back for real now.
For real, weird. Okay.
Yeah, you cut out for a bit there, but and we talked briefly about the South Shore Center location and how it does get some good use there. Are there any others besides those two?
In the city, not that I know of. There's some. Cycle Simcoe has put, I think, 19 out throughout the county. So if you're on the rail trail that heads towards Aurelia, then you do see that. Yeah, it's a good question. How much do they get used? Well, I know personally, like if you put them in neighborhoods, they will get used. Like if you put, let's say Letitia Heights, for instance, that you have this sort of skateboard BMX park associated with Andrew Hunter and all of that. That would be a great location. The one Livingston, East Bayfield Center makes sense because you're on the way to the mall, and so that people on their bicycles, like where you catch them when they're traveling. So when do you realize your bike needs fixing is usually partway through your ride. It's usually at least in terms of maintenance. So that's why, yeah, that's why I think having them at our community centers makes a lot of sense. They're very close, and they are these community hubs, and they are hubs for people with not a lot of money. And for us, that's really important. We want to reach people that don't have the resources to take their bike to a bike shop. And as well, I mean, if people that do have resources can definitely come to it, but our focus is getting people that are not mobile enough to do this, they do not have the sort of funds to get other places.
The other thing that we're trying to build into our strategy here is that we would follow up after these are installed, providing these workshops and lessons. So at the same time, Firebird staff would be there to check it out, maintain it, make sure if it needs repairs or tool replacements if someone got stolen. Plus, having these regular workshops there would increase the amount that they would get used, because then now people are familiar with them, they know where they are, and they've been shown how to use it.
That's great.
What we're be hoping for as well, through further discussions with the city, is if there could be worked into some future budgets from the city, just a little bit of support for Firebird to go there to these stands on a regular basis, to provide the workshops and to maintain them.
All right. Al, did you have other questions? Or is that?
Oh, good, Kim. Thanks.
That's it? Okay. Eric Van Weesenbeck is next.
Thank you. So Grant and Jerry, thank you first of all for presenting this, and I commend you both on your initiative and in going, trying to get this going. I think it's awesome. It's a really good idea. It's practical. It supports active transportation, which is what we're about here at this committee, and I like the fact that it supports people who don't necessarily have the resources to go to bike shops. So one of my questions was what Alwyn asked, or Keenan, sorry, about budget and like budget in relation to the grant. Have you worked out roughly what you think it would cost per unit, what the grant application is, or what you think you may get, and then how many units is that? Like just a bit of a plan is one question, and that will help scope out, I guess, sourcing and implementation should you get the grant. I think it's a great idea, and a key point too would be picking strategic locations as you have just discussed, so that the limited funds that do come in are the use is maximized. So it's a few questions there. I guess it's a budget plan and strategic location, some planning around that.
We have the order in order for us to kind of come up with a good budget or a solid budget kind of depends on how the interest of the city and how many locations we can use with the city, and then we can come up. We're sort of finalizing our budget depending on what the cities can offer. I have budgeted out like the price per repair stand, and then I also have budgeted for a summer's worth of staff to come and do the bicycle tutorials or the repair stand tutorials. This federal grant has a sort of a maximum of $250,000. We're imagining that we're not going to go all the way to $250,000, but that our budget for this project is going to be fairly high. That we're talking about employing somebody, part-time for a good chunk of the year, and then we're also talking about these stands that are thousands of dollars a pop. So we've done a sort of a rough budget, but we don't have final numbers because that's sort of contingent upon how the interest of the city. So does that answer your budget question?
It does. And then the other one is just strategic locations.
Yeah. I think as far as a bicycle repair stand goes, if it's in a public spot, like a City of Barrie spot, it's going to be already that there's going to be an audience. Yeah. So our spots again are sort of depending on who wants to pick this up. Is it Parks and Recreation that wants to pick this up, or is it something that could be at a transit hub, like say the downtown bus terminal, or like the GO train station in Allendale, or something like that. So we're flexible in terms of spots. I think any spot is going to reach some people, and any spot is going to reach, if it's associated with the City of Barrie location, there is already an audience. So yeah, we have sort of worked out some different scenarios depending on what gets picked up or not.
Thank you. Just a comment, it occurs to me as you're speaking that locations like you've suggested that are in existing hubs where there are several people, in some cases, I'm guessing security cameras already on city buildings, it will help ensure minimal vandalizing and that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's what we've thought about. And if there are places like that are really busy, then you're already going to reduce the amount of vandalism because it's just the sheer number of people around that spot. So it helps with that. Yeah.
All right. That's it for your questions, Eric?
Thank you. Yes.
That's great. Thanks. Okay. And John is up next.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I guess that was one thing at the start when we're talking about positive things. Yeah, looking around at everyone biking right now, I mean, that's got to be you look at it, everyone's ripping around. So that's great. And yeah, I think this is a great thing. I guess anecdotally, just the other day, I was at the one on the South Shore Center and saw two people working on two different bikes, kind of as I went out there and still working on it as we went back. So I don't know if they've got their bikes fixed, but they're spending a lot of time working on it anyway. So that's great. And as well, I have certainly been using it on the way through, thinking, rather than pulling my pump out, we'll just go past the one there and do it as we go. So yeah, anecdotally, I see them being used. There was some damage to that one on South Shore Center with the pump, but my guess is that although it's expensive to put them in, that the repairs on them probably aren't that much to fix or to replace tools here and there. So I guess, yeah, I was kind of, a lot of these have already been hit, but yeah, the GO station, I thought was hitting them up at the GO station. I think it's a good spot, like Eric mentioned, with the cameras and a place where if you're leaving a bike there for a period of time, coming back and picking it up, sometimes stuff tends to happen, like give a slow leak or something like that, you can fix. But I think that's great. And yeah, building it locally, I think that's great that we got Brendan or someone to do it. I think that's another great positive to it. Yeah, I think most of my other stuff I think has already been hit. So I think, yeah, in general, great. I think it's a great thing. I think we can really use it, and I think they are well used, the ones that we've got.
That's great. Thanks, John. Okay, so we're coming up at 50 minutes, and I do want to get to our other items, but Tara mentioned that we would likely need some direction for city staff to work with Firebird on their grant application. Tara, do you know when the next city building committee meeting is?
I believe it's April 13th, but let me.
Okay. So if we passed a motion today, it could get on the agenda for that one?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So while you confirm that, I have written out a motion that we could potentially pass. So it's that staff in the operations, corporate facilities, and recreation and culture services departments investigate the feasibility of supporting Firebird Community Cycle in their application to the Healthy Community Initiatives Grant for bicycle repair stations at some city facilities, and report back by the end of May of 2021. I guess we would want them to report back to general committee too, so that it gets through the process quicker.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie, did you have to add on that?
Just to John's comment about the GO station, that would include an engagement of Metrolinx. So I didn't want that to get missed in the motion. So maybe it's a two-part motion, where motion B could be that staff also investigate engaging Metrolinx around the possibility of installation at the GO station, and any other recommendations around key transit nodes across the city.
Okay. Okay.
I don't suppose the city property, but beside the GO train station on the waterfront, is that a state where we could contemplate placing a bike repair stand?
A whole can of worms that might actually just be easier to engage with Metrolinx. And I mean,
I was just thinking the Metrolinx is a can of worms too.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And yeah, and it might not be necessary, but I wasn't sure. I know in some of our development, right, on planning committee, there's a certain proximity to the station where some degree of at least informing or consulting with Metrolinx is required. So wondering if that's of benefit. And then the other piece, I wasn't sure if we wanted to specifically set a minimum hypothetical, which was, I think, and I might need you to reread your draft motion, Keenan, but around our 3 key recreation centers, right? So Holly, Allendale, and East Bayfield at minimum.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we should specify that, because I guess the terms of the grant will sort of decide what's possible there, and you guys are going to go big. So yeah, I'm not sure if we want to limit it at that point. Maybe when it comes back and staff have engaged with Firebird and it comes back at the end of May, that we'll have some information on the actual details of what they were able to work out. Tara, I see your hand.
All right. You might want to just put city facilities and community centers, something like a little bit more general.
That's great. And would it also be a good idea to have Grant or Jerry present at the next city building on this? I'm just wondering, rather than it being a static motion, if it would be of any benefit to give the context or answer some questions to support that motion before it goes to general committee in the future.
I can, yeah, definitely. It is April 13th. I can speak with our city clerk and make sure we have room if they are interested in presenting something. It might be a little too soon, and I'm not totally sure if our agenda is full or not, but I can look into that.
Okay, that'd be great. And I guess I would also suggest, on Emery's point, that Grant and Jerry, that you guys maybe try to reach out to Metrolinx at this point too, to let them know that you are looking to apply to this grant, and that you would love their involvement, or at least their permission to involve their facilities. But we can also add that piece to the motion, so that staff investigate engaging Metrolinx to facilitate the construction of bicycle repair stations at the city's 2 GO stations. Does that make sense? Okay, I saw John's hand.
Thanks. Yeah, just with a quick look through here, it looks like Metrolinx does have, they've got a standard for it anyway. So maybe, you know, it looks like that may be something that's not that difficult to put in along with their bike locking station. So looks
okay,
good.
That's great.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll pay for it too. All right. Oh, Grant, did you?
Oh, just say maybe they'll buy 12.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else on this piece? And I can read out the motion one more time before we take a vote. We're also going to need a mover. Everyone's good so far? Eric, did you want to move it? Is that what that hand was for? Okay, perfect. So I'll read it one last time. So it's that staff in the operations, corporate facilities, and recreation and culture services departments investigate the feasibility of supporting Firebird Community Cycle in their application to the Healthy Communities Initiatives grant for bicycle repair stations at some city facilities and rec centers, and report back to General Committee by the end of May of 2021. And that as part of that investigation, staff engage Metrolinx to facilitate the construction of bicycle repair stations at the city's 2 GO stations. Does that capture it for everyone, do you think?
Is the timeline addressed okay for the grant application, Grant and Jerry? I didn't quite catch the dates.
I think, well, actually, I'll let Jerry handle this one.
I think so. The grant application is due June 25th.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So I'm glad we're able to get in on this meeting here to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my thinking was that we'll get that report back to General Committee by the end of May, and then there'll be some recommendations or just some information, and then council can make a decision to go ahead with assisting with the grant, hoping that they make that decision at least. We always like to partner with people in the community, so I think we'd be consistent on that. Kevin, did you have something to add on that?
Just a quick question or comment. If the focus for at least the first, we'll call this the first rollout of this, is going to be corporate facilities and rec centers, and you may be able to pull operations off of the motion just because we may not have more than some support. We could include it as a supporting department, but.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess my thinking was, you know, potentially in the longer term if there were maintenance issues and that sort of thing, but I think at this stage maybe we can leave that off if that's okay with everyone.
My,
Yep, go ahead.
Keenan, my only other thought, a bit left field, was we've just seen all those bike racks installed down Dunlop. Was that through the BIA or was that city?
I believe that was through the city, through the Dunlop Streetscape project.
Thank you. I was just wondering about whether or not the BIA might be another stakeholder group for Jerry and Grant, or not, if they were associated to that installation, but might just be a side conversation if that could be another stakeholder for them to investigate.
Yeah, great suggestion. Yeah, for sure. You guys should reach out if you have the time, the courage.
Potentially, if the application needed supporting letters or endorsement or something like that from, other groups.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We can keep on top of that, keep in touch, and then once we have a bit more information about what that grant is going to look like, then letters of support are definitely a great idea. Eric Jacoby Hawkins, did you?
Yeah, just further to that grant application, is Firebird Cycle a registered charity?
Not for profit, I think. Yeah, Grant's nodding.
So if there's a requirement for a charity partner for the grant, get in touch with Living Green. We often partner with groups that need charitable status for a grant application.
That's
no,
great.
we checked the grant app guidelines, and nonprofits are eligible.
Perfect. Okay, so not seeing any other, Emery, go
And
ahead.
sorry, and
No,
this
no
may
worries.
be a you, Keenan, or Tara, just so it's not a missed opportunity. Is this group within our mandate can issue a letter of support, and should we then instruct staff to do that as part of our motion? So Jerry and Grant don't need to come back, even if it's in addition to general committee in the city. So could we actually motion to ask staff that that when the grant is prepared to go, that a letter of support is identified on behalf of active transportation sustainability? Is that within our mandate, Tara? Or does that have to be more of a city letter?
No, it can come through the active transportation if all the committees agree to support. Like it's initiative, so, and it's part of within our term, so you should be able to do that.
Okay.
If you want to do that, I'd do it now because you won't be able to do it again until next month. So.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we could add on one other sentence about that the active transportation and sustainability advisory committee supports Firebird Community Cycles grant application under the Healthy Communities initiatives for bicycle repair stations at some city facilities. And yeah, I wonder, like, I guess as chair, I could maybe just write the letter, and with that motion, that might give us enough direction. Then we don't have to write a letter as a committee, which could take some time.
Yeah, or sometimes I've seen grant applications are just great if they've got like a recorded date that the motion was passed versus a letter too. So I'll look to Jerry and Grant to see what you find out you need, but hopefully that either allows a letter to be triggered if there's a supplement aspect of the grant, or at least you're able to already automatically include the support through this committee.
Yeah, if that motion saying that the active transportation is in support or of the letter and whatnot, I can do a draft. It's a kind of a generic letter that we put up, and we would put the motion and whatnot in it, and then we could get Councillor Owen to sign it if you want.
That's great. Okay, so we'll tack on that piece just so we have it in our back pocket if we need it. Eric, is your hand?
Yeah, Grant and Jerry, if it would help, I could possibly get a similar letter of support from Barrie Cycling Club. Yeah, okay.
That's great.
That'd be great, thanks.
I'll bring that to the board meeting we're having coming up soon.
Okay, anything else on that piece? Are we ready to bring this to a vote? Not seeing any. Okay, does anyone need the final text of the motion read out at all, or do we all have it? Okay, perfect. So I'll call the question. Those in favor? Okay, Eric Jacoby Hawkins. Do you have a vote? Yes. Okay, opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Okay, great,
Councillor
thank
Altman.
you. Yes.
Sorry, just to let you know, Maria Kavanaugh, she is a member.
Oh, there she, oh, I didn't see her name there. Hey, Maria.
There she is.
Welcome. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was actually trying to quietly come in. I was having some tech issues that Brandy was helping me out with, so thanks.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our next item then. So this is also the committee review urban design guidelines. This is also kind of a standing item at this point. We're waiting.
Excuse me, I think we skipped the Firebird one up the agenda.
Oh, right, you're right.
2.2
You're right.
is the
Thank you for
next
that.
step.
Thank you for that. Okay. So Vision
Just going to say
Zero.
goodbye and thank you all.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome to stay if you want to, but head out if you need to.
Thanks.
Guys. We'll be in touch. Alrighty. Okay. So a conversation about Vision Zero. I can't actually fully remember where this came from. I know Brett.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can we go to item 2.2? That's the next thing on the agenda.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. My notes are a mess here. So thank you, Al. You're really holding me accountable there. I like it. It's great. Okay. So Al, that's your item. Sorry.
It is.
That. You go ahead.
Okay. I hope everybody got the information circulated around both the press release on the Lake Simcoe Under Pressure in 2021 report and the actual report itself. So the report is an amazing piece of work. But the reason I asked to have it on the agenda is because of the importance to Barrie, and we are a committee of this advisory committee of the city of Barrie, the importance of Lake Simcoe to our economy, to our social structure, and Lord knows we've seen that over the run of the pandemic, and particularly to our environment, which comes back around to, much of what drives the economy of Barrie is tourism and things for which if Lake Simcoe goes belly up or just continues a slow deterioration, that means that any part of our economy that's based on that will continue. Even the current real estate boom, how many people are going to want to be within viewing distance or on the waterfront of a dying lake, and yet we have not established how much growth the Lake Simcoe watershed can sustain. The things like phosphorus and salt levels are continuing. Phosphorus has not declined in the lake over time, despite the efforts and the substantial cost. For example, the city of Barrie put into our own sewage treatment plant. I mean, our per capita levels are exceedingly low, but we keep adding more people. So our total loading, which is all really that the lake cares about, is not going down. Just to quote from the last paragraph on the first page of the press release, the groups, the Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition and the Simcoe County Greenbelt Coalition want the public and elected officials to consider the totality of what's proposed to occur around Lake Simcoe and answers the questions from Lake Simcoe municipalities relating to how the objectives and targets of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, which is a pretty unique document in itself, could be met with all the development that's being directed by, particularly by recent changes to the Places to Grow, now it's Ontario's A Place to Grow growth plan. Ontario has ordered municipalities to plan for growth with guidelines that promote sprawl to 2051. This would more than double the watershed's population and likely add 20 tons of phosphorus to the lake by 2051. The Lake Simcoe Protection Plan target is to lower phosphorus loads from an average of 90 tons to 44 tons per year by 2045. So as Claire Malcolmson said, we're going the wrong way, guys. And the more people we have in the watershed, the other thing that is happening is that the chloride levels primarily from road salt and salt spread on parking lots and driveways and things like that in the wintertime, for safety, we're using more than we need to. The city of Barrie has had very good programs about trying to manage their salt application and stuff, but all private property owners and hire private contractors, everybody's worried about liability if somebody slips and falls on the ice. Therefore, when in doubt, put more salt out. It's not solving the problem. It's essentially making it worse. So there was a motion, and Keenan, perhaps you could clarify just what happened with this. There was a motion that was going to be raised at council, I think a week or a week and a half ago, and that seems to have now been withdrawn, anticipating that there may be some kind of staff report coming forward on that. Can you fill us in, or you or Anne Marie fill us in as to exactly what's happening with that particular recommendation? Because it really bears on all of this stuff. It was particularly, I think, in reference to the Upper York servicing solution, and that is the next seems to keep going back and forth at the province as to, are we going to dump the so-called treated sewage into Lake Ontario down at Pickering, or are we going to dump it into Lake Simcoe, and are we going to have phosphorus offsetting, which has not been long time proven, to work? Or so what can you tell us on that score?
So on that particular motion, it was withdrawn by the councillor who had placed it on the agenda, Councillor Mike McCann, with, as far as I'm aware, no reason given. I don't know if Anne Marie, you heard a reason for that being withdrawn. No. So it was just withdrawn. You mentioned, Al, you might have heard there's a pending staff report.
Well, there was a newspaper article, I think in Barrie Today, on it, and I believe the reference was that I think Councillor McCann was sort of suggesting that we would probably need a staff report to inform council as to, what kind of position they should take on this thing, particularly on the Upper York servicing scheme. The fact is, the Lake Simcoe watershed is finite, and the watershed all drains into the lake. So whether you whether you add 150,000 people at Alcona with the Orbit scheme, or Barrie grows by another 100,000 or so, I think is about our current 2051 target or something like that, or 41. Those extra bodies generating more sewage, generating more runoff, generating more impact on the lake. How much of this can we handle? And this is a debate that has been going on. The growth plan was preceded by a huge thing called an assimilative capacity study for Lake Simcoe. But and I don't know whether it still has any relevance or not, because this was like 20 years ago. But there's too much impact on the lake, and the city of Barrie is the biggest single population in the watershed. And if we don't stand up for the lake and say enough is enough, province, other municipalities, we are going, we will bear the fruit of that decision one way or the other. And I just think it would be a tragedy. It's kind of like climate change, it's happening. We've been causing it, and we are as they say, the architects of our own misfortune. I got 3 grandkids now, I'd like to live, and they're all here in Barrie. I'd like to leave them a better opportunity than potentially what we're going to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so on the particular motion that had been withdrawn, I see the article here in Barrie Today. So it looks like Councillor McCann does intend to come back with a motion that is a bit more specific. He said he came across some new information and he wants to revise it so that we get a fulsome report from our staff on that. Tara, I don't know if you have.
I don't know too much of the background. I know obviously it was withdrawn and with the intent of coming back at a later meeting. As well, I know staff are in the midst of different programs and whatnot that they're doing surrounding something like this. So I know staff are investigating and doing stuff with it. I haven't heard of a staff report coming to the committee yet, but I know they are aware of everything and are doing stuff for this. So,
and Al, specifically on the Bradford bypass, are you looking for us as a committee to pass a resolution that then goes on to council, asking for anything in particular? Like, from reading some of the materials, there's a demand for a comprehensive environmental assessment.
On the Bradford bypass. I think the major problem, and they are outlined in the Lake Simcoe Under Pressure report, but the environmental studies that were done for this, some of them were done, they're 20 years old or more. Some of them were not done because the province had put this thing on the shelf and said, well, we don't need to spend the money on this stuff. Those studies were all done before the Lake Simcoe Protection Act and the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan were even, I shouldn't say were even heard of, because former Conservative MPP Garfield Dunlop from Simcoe North was pushing for this thing for several years. He even put a private member's bill in the legislature. And this was when after the Liberal government had come in, I think in about 2003 or 4, and said, look, will you guys take this over as a government bill? You've got the resources to do this. You can bring the expertise to bear on it. And the government listened and did, and they brought in the act and said, we will develop the plan. And they did develop the plan. And it's pretty unique for any lake certainly in Canada, and I think they're in North America. So, but it's up for, it's under review now by the province, because there was a 10-year review period that was a statutory thing in the legislation. So I would like the Bradford bypass was, the so-called environmental studies on that were done before any of that. So their understanding of any assessment on and impacts on Lake Simcoe really didn't exist. And the present government has said, well, we don't need to do that. We can, we're quite happy to change the rules. So the groups involved in trying to save Lake Simcoe and improve it are saying, we're asking the federal government to bring in a federal impact assessment on this, because the province is not doing the job that they need to be doing. So if a motion to that effect can be brought, and I hope supported by council, that is, in my opinion, that is Foursquare in Barrie's best interests. And that would be the first thing to do on this. And I understand that there may be a decision coming out. It could be sometime in May on that. There's been a formal legal request submitted by EcoJustice on behalf of the environmental organizations, community organizations, and so this is something that needs to be supported by the city of Barrie. We have the most to lose.
Okay, so thank you for that, Al. So I have some wording here to start us off, just to start the discussion going, that due to the potential negative impacts on Lake Simcoe, the City of Barrie requests that the Government of Canada conduct a comprehensive federal environmental impact assessment of the proposed Bradford bypass and make the results available to the public. Does that capture what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think that's a very good start. And if there's any, if you can send me that wording, I can check back and just see if it needs any massaging. But I think that certainly fulfills the intent that I was hoping for, Keenan.
And then I was thinking of part two, that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the relevant ministers. So I guess we'd want the federal minister of the environment.
Mr. Wilkinson. There's a list. It's in one of the. I can get it for you, Keenan, but it's in one of the links on the Bradford bypass.
Okay, we do need to work that out. Are there any questions on that? No? Okay, so
Kelly has one.
Kelly, go ahead, sorry. And then John.
Thank you. Just listening to Al and, understanding our role as a city and our growth over the next, our goal, 100, adding 100 or 150,000. What action plans does the city have in place to help or alleviate the impact on Lake Simcoe? Is it built into our building? Like where is that guideline, or where is that action plan in place so we know it's going to impact Lake Simcoe? So how do we figure that out?
So the city funds the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, and they're really the body that does that work. So on all development applications, they review the applications and assess that impact on Lake Simcoe, and in particular the issue of phosphorus runoff. And then the city itself, we are working right now to develop we're calling it a stormwater climate action fund, which is a way of incentivizing property owners to reduce the amount of runoff that happens on their property, which is a huge piece of that issue with Lake Simcoe. And then in terms of beyond our boundaries, that's where the Conservation Authority is sort of our voice in those conversations. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, is it enough, do you think, Keenan? Like, are we going to be doing enough? Or
No.
Okay.
That's fair, exactly the right answer, Keenan, because the report documents, and this is from LSRCA and provincial government documents, that we've had the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan in effect, I think, since the Act since 2007, and I think the plan since 2009 or 2010. And we haven't made, last year, there was a bit of anomaly in the phosphorus readings, but where they showed a drop, and that's it's not clear why that was, because it doesn't seem to be anything that's changed on them particularly. But we haven't made it much of a dent in it, and we weren't supposed to just be holding the line. We were supposed to be reducing it. And the projection is that we're going to be adding another 20 metric tons of phosphorus into the watershed. And the city of Barrie has spent a huge amount of money to reduce the phosphorus discharge from its sewage treatment plant. We, the taxpayers of Barrie, have helped to pay for that. And so we all have an individual investment in that as well.
Absolutely. I did want to go to John because his hand is up as well.
Thanks, Keenan, and thanks, Al, for this. My question is whether or not, so in the wording, we're sending this to the federal government. I'm just wondering, why are we not directing this, so should we be directing this to the provincial government first? Or like, I guess I don't understand why we're to the federal government.
The answer, I guess, simply is that the provincial government at the moment has said they don't care. This is how they're proposing to proceed with the thing. So there are because there are elements of federal legislation like the Federal Fisheries Act. There's a couple of other things that were, and they slipped my mind at the moment, but they were noted in the report. And so the feds have some jurisdiction here, which they need to exercise because the province refuses to exercise its jurisdiction. They just want to bull ahead. They even with this and with this plan, there's even the proposals being put forth by the province where before any environmental assessment is in any further environmental assessment studies or anything are done, they can actually start pre-building things like bridges. You know, I can tell you, bridges are very expensive things to build. So, you know, if you want a bridge to nowhere, you're not going to get that because once they say, well, but we're committed. So we got a bridge in place. So we're going to build the road on either side of it.
So the intention is really to, I guess, go over the heads of the province because they aren't doing that work. And that's sort of it's calling on the federal government to step in. I'm sure we could add a clause to it that we circulated to local members of provincial parliament too. So they're aware
sure.
And they can bring that to their minister. If the committee thinks that's a good idea.
I think that would be positive.
Wilf, I see your hand.
Thanks, Keelan. Al, you just mentioned that the federal government does have jurisdiction, and you mentioned fisheries. So I just wonder, do we want a motion that is very specific on what we're asking each ministry to investigate and report on? That's a little less generic, that leaves them fewer loopholes to get out and say we did what you asked us to, but it really wasn't what we needed.
No, I think the request that's been filed, and I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but I did read the letter to the minister, and I think it covers the bases and sets out the concerns about the inadequacy of the existing studies and specific. It was written. EcoJustice is prepared this request, you know, and they are lawyers, and I think they've covered the basis very, very well. So essentially, it's just a request to our resolution is to support the request for a federal, I believe it's impact assessment, but.
And Al, you're referencing the letter to the MTO, to the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, right? Caroline Mulroney from EcoJustice?
I think that I can get the actual, the request has been submitted to Minister Wilkinson.
Okay, yeah, it's CC'd here to Jonathan Wilkinson and Bernadette Jordan, Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Yeah, so demanded a federal environmental assessment because your ministry has failed. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So it does make sense to go to the federal government in that sense. Then we should probably add the minister that they had, Minister of Fisheries.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's interesting that I think it's noted in the press release, all the provincial members within the Lake Simcoe watershed belong to are members of the government party. So when the government's already said, provincial government has already said, we're going to push ahead with this, we sadly don't have any advocates for us at Queen's Park to say, you know what?
Okay.
You're just going down the wrong track here, guys.
Okay, so I have some wording that I'll read again here, and then maybe we can have some final discussion and then a vote on that. So that due to the potential negative impacts on Lake Simcoe, the City of Barrie requests that the Government of Canada conduct a comprehensive federal environmental impact assessment of the proposed Bradford bypass and make the results available to the public. That a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Federal Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, local members of Parliament, local members of Provincial Parliament, and the Provincial Minister of Transportation.
Yep.
How does that sound? Do I have someone who's willing to put that on the floor? Al, would you like to move that?
I certainly would.
That's great. Any further discussion or questions on that?
Eric, I will second it.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. Not seeing any other hands. So I'll call the question. Those in favor? Okay. And Maria and Eric, are you also in favor?
Yes, in favor.
Yes. Okay. That's great. And opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Okay. Now,
Keenan, since Maria joined us late, could she just give us a quick thumbnail like we did, the rest of us did?
Absolutely. Yeah. Maria, would you like to quickly introduce yourself? Welcome to the committee. We're so happy to have you. Yeah, I think you missed our introductions earlier, so we'll have to do that again next month so you know who everyone is. But you can go ahead and introduce yourself if you'd like.
Absolutely. Maria Kavanagh, happy to be here. Thanks. I do work in York Region, so I am very familiar with government and council and all of its processes. I've worked in a variety of departments in the region, including transportation. I've been in Barrie, I'm going to say about 12 years now, live in the Allendale area, use a lot of the active transportation facilities in the city, and just like to be part of the solution. So thanks for having me, everyone.
Thanks, Maria. Okay, so the next item is the conversation about Vision Zero. So I don't actually remember exactly what we intended with this item. It just came up at a previous meeting. Anne-Marie, did you have a thought on that? And I know Brett has talked about this piece a little bit. So go ahead if you have any idea where we're going with this.
Yes, I can jump in if it helps from some background context. I think when we were generating information about our website tied to our work plan, there was discussion, be it either at a previous meeting or through email, about whether or not we'd also consider things like Vision Zero, and City of Toronto, I think, was an example given. So there was some added links around Vision Zero out of City of Toronto that was embedded in the resource that went to Brett, I think, when we were considering some of the content, but was, I think, for further conversation. I think that was an add-on about, is this something we would explore? So I don't think we've had robust conversation here.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm sure Brett has some stuff to add, because I know they have been working with is it the Vision Zero network that you're working with on this?
Yeah, so we're working with the Ontario Traffic Council, with the City of Guelph, Mississauga, Halton Region, City of London, York Region, Richmond Hill, Brampton, Essex County, Vaughan, and Cambridge, a long list there, to develop a Vision Zero policy. So we're working right now. We've had our kickoff meeting, and we're hoping to wrap this up hopefully in Q1 22. So that would be a guideline for provincial use to guide municipalities in their development of a Vision Zero plan. And then we'd look to follow up with our own City of Barrie Vision Zero plan once that policy was in place. But I did want to put forth a suggestion to the committee to consider a motion pertaining to staff requesting funding as part of the 2022 operating budget to fund a Vision Zero policy, as well as a traffic calming policy update.
Okay, that's fantastic. So requesting specific funding in the 2022 business plan and budget for the development of a Vision Zero policy I'm sorry, what was the second piece?
And
there?
a traffic calming policy.
Traffic calming.
A traffic calming policy update.
Okay.
So the Vision Zero piece is pretty self-explanatory. We'll have the guidelines in place, and that's a priority we see in transportation planning to look into developing a City of Barrie solution. Then the traffic calming policy piece is just builds on the Vision Zero. There'll be components. There's some relationships between the two studies, and just there's been about 10 years since our last traffic calming policy was developed, and there's a lot of advances in that area. So we'd like to take that policy to the next level as well. So.
Okay, that's great. I see Maria's hand and then Anne-Marie's hand. So go ahead, Maria.
Thanks. Just wondered, where's the biggest problem in Barrie? Is it with peds? Is it cyclists? Is it speeding? Is it certain locations in the city? From a policy perspective, is the focus going to be more on sort of the general Vision Zero sort of principles kind of in theory, or is it targeted pieces that we're looking for because we have a specific problem we're trying to solve in a specific place? Just wondering, is this sort of a philosophy or is it a very specific piece that we're trying to solve an issue?
So with Vision Zero, it is a philosophy, but you really want to target the most vulnerable road users, so your pedestrians and cyclists. But you're not ignoring motorists either. We want to protect all users, but it's just the focus would be primarily on pedestrians and cyclists.
And where's the problem in the city? Like I mean, everybody wants a Vision Zero philosophically. Is it, again, is this a specific issue or is it just, this is a good idea, so this is what we're doing?
I can't point to a specific issue. It's just general movement, recognition of increased active transportation, the need to focus more on safety, just kind of advancing policies forward.
So it's a very policy focused. So okay, gotcha. Thanks.
And Anne-Marie?
I was wondering, Brett, if there was an awareness about if budget amount would need to be put to that motion at all, or if there's any type of forecasted amount for that policy, or if it will come later through staff. I just wasn't sure if there would be a particular reserve that we would look to for that funding, or if it would be net new, and we're in the process, and maybe that's Tara or Keenan, we would look to build that in. Or would it go to city building next with some finer dollar amounts coming forward?
My thought was with the support from a motion through the AT committee, that would give us the kind of the backing to go through the traditional budgeting process, and funding would be determined through that process with finance. That's my take on it, but open to suggestions.
Yeah, so I was thinking, like, I don't know if this is the right wording. Tara might have a better idea, but that an intake form be submitted as part of the 2022 business plan and budget process for the development of a Vision Zero policy and traffic calming policy update. Tara, did you have some thoughts? I see you nodding.
Hello. So I believe, Brett, so that would be, it's more just looking into it right now?
So that would be the funds to develop a policy. So retain a consultant, do the technical work. I don't have a specific number right now. That's some exploratory work we're going to be doing over the coming weeks in advance of the budget process.
So it would probably be an RFP at some point?
Yeah, and that's where I think the intake form comes in, right? That's where the amount would be determined, and we're sort of just giving that general direction to give Brett that backing when he goes to EMT.
Yeah, and I'll have an estimate ready for the budgetary process. That won't be an issue, but just as of today for this motion to get it completed.
Yeah, I would just put like what Keenan had said about the budget right there.
Great. And I've got a follow-up, Keenan. And I think to Maria's conversation about where are we seeing the issues, and then Brett, some of the scope of work. And by the way, great recall on all the listed municipalities involved. That was impressive. I was wondering about school boards. So I would say that, putting my ward counselor hat on, most of my, near misses and concerns and complaints around traffic safety has been majority are close to school zones and or in changes to some of our parking and walking pathways to schools. Some of it might be an artifact of COVID and changes around some of those pieces, but wondering about, Brett, when we talk about this piece and maybe it's a future forecast to what will come to this committee and if in our work plan, but does some of the Vision Zero involve school boards or policies that kind of impact and practices that can impact walkabilities to school and school routes and some of those concerns around pedestrian safety?
I think it will. There'll definitely be a broad consultation as part of the Vision Zero, as well as the traffic calming policy I'm forecasting. The traffic calming will be led by our traffic services group, so I don't want to commit them to anything without additional discussion, so everything's preliminary. But we do envision consultation with the school boards. One of the big things with either Vision Zero as well as the traffic calming policy is trying to move to an objective based data-driven approach to really help us prioritize things a little bit clearer versus a more of an ad hoc kind of subjective approach right now. So that's one of the movements we really like to explore to see how we could do that reasonably. So
that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other comments for Brett on this piece? Okay, so I do have that draft motion so that an intake form be submitted as part of the 2022 business plan and budget process for the development of a Vision Zero policy and traffic calming policy update. Do I have a willing mover? Anne Marie. Okay, awesome.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Eric. Any other comments or questions on that piece? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And Eric?
Yes.
And opposed? None. That carries. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brett, for that. Very exciting work. Okay. So I do really want to get to item 2.9, the last one on the list, because Kelly is so patient and it's such a good item. And I know she's been talking about this for a couple of years now. And I just think it's a great idea that I would love for us to get to today. So if the committee's okay with it, I'd like us to bump up that item to the next one. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, seeing nods. Okay, so this is about a reduction and phase out of two-cycle maintenance city equipment and the use of alternative technologies. So Kelly, do you want to introduce this item and what you were thinking with this?
Yeah, would you mind if I screen shared? I just did like 5 or 6 slides, and
that's awesome.
Believe me, I won't kill you with PowerPoint, but I just thought it would be a good example. Just
that's great.
Easier to present. So I'm going to I just clicked that button on share screen, right, Keenan? So you're the expert on Zoom.
I think so. I think so. And hopefully you have permission to share screen. If not,
okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. Share.
Looks like it's
working. Yeah, it's working. Good. Super. Okay. Let's go to there we go. Great. Can you guys see this okay?
Yep.
Good. Great. Okay. Just an FYI, that's Sunnydale Park. And I can't wait for that to come. It's coming soon. So part of my, I guess it's a frustration and an opportunity is looking at how we manage better when it comes to greenhouse gases. And part of that is our specific use of two-cycle maintenance equipment within the city of Barrie. And just I'm going to give just a little quick overview on what happens and just the impacts of the two-stroke or two-cycle. And I know this was done to promote a car, or Ford in particular, a truck, but these folks did the Edmonds group did a test, and it's quite amazing the actual impact. And I don't know if we really understand, hydrocarbon emissions from a half an hour of yard work with the two-stroke are about the same as a 3,900 mile drive from Texas to Alaska in a Ford Raptor. Now, I know this is a very high efficient engine in this truck, but it's more green to ditch your yard equipment and find a way to blow leaves with your truck. So it would be more effective that way. the California Air Resources Board, and they always are miles ahead of us in their understanding of the impact on the environment. So just again, a simple diagram that shows what these impacts are to our community and what it means to the environment, and how simple it seems in my mind with unlimited money, I suppose, is how we convert, from these two-stroke carbon spewing things that we use to the damage we do to our planet is ridiculous. I guess the other impacts too that I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of is there's small particulates as well that come up when you're, especially with the leaf blowers, that get ingested or flown around the environment, the damage to our wildlife, our bees. The noise alone from a decibels perspective is quite damaging, not only to people around, but to staff. So just imagine, the staff having to do this day in and day out, and whether or not they have headphones, we just really need to think about the impact on our staff that are in the city, but also the citizens. So there's also an issue with gas spillage, which I never thought about when they're filling up the equipment. So this also impacts negatively on the surrounding environment. So just looking at that, we really need to be more thoughtful. Quite honestly, we need to be more thoughtful, and we can align this. Keenan, you sit on this committee, right? The current community reductions plan, and this is something that can be aligned with that as we're thinking about this in the future, and how we have this impact on the reduction of our greenhouse gases. But not only that, we're setting an example as a city, right? We're setting an example to our citizens, if we're taking these steps, little steps, whether it's, replacing half of the equipment with battery powered equipment, looking at different ways, but also, this is a report too, if you guys are interested, or if the city at some point, the Vancouver Board Parks and Rec emissions footprint, they did an actual study on replacing their gas powered equipment with electric small equipment. It's quite good. I was just reading it the other day. So that's a really good one. I could certainly send out they have a PDF of that as well. So the other thing, I like to come to the table with solutions, right? I'm going to complain, but I want to say, oh, okay, great. So here's some solutions, some ideas. What about expansion, expanding our naturalization of our park areas? So that in turn requires less use of our maintenance equipment, less mowing, less trimming, et cetera. So that's an opportunity of when we're designing new parks as we grow to another 160,000 people, how do we eliminate or reduce mowing and trimming in those parks? So when we're building these parks, we take this into consideration. We have a plan that says, we're really thinking about naturalization and how we reduce the use of this maintenance equipment. Just reducing grass clipping and autumn leaf removal. I mean, often I've seen gathering of leaves in certain areas at Sunnydale Park, which actually seems absolutely crazy, because I walk through the forest and year after year after year for the last 30 years, and I'm not walking in 14 feet of leaves. Believe it or not, they biodegrade. So it's okay, you can leave them there. The other piece is this whole idea about landscaping with native plants and native species that require less water because they're adapted to our environment, and they're perennial, the ones that are going to come back. So, coming up with a few of these solutions. One of the big things that I believe is a big part of this is education and engagement. And that comes with empowering staff to make choices and ideas. So if I'm on a lawnmower and I see that I'm scheduled to cut the grass at Sunnydale Park and there's no grass to cut, then I make that, or I'm allowed to make that choice and decision, then I'm not going to cut the grass because why am I cutting it when it needs no cutting? So there's that whole other piece of it. It's like education. I really believe in engaging and empowering staff at that level to say, hey, look at this. Why am I out here cutting the grass and I'm wasting all this fuel and dumping it into the environment? It's a bit ridiculous. Yeah, it's my job, but let's rethink that. Give them the opportunity to say, hey, we don't need to do this. This makes absolutely no sense. And I've seen that several times. Another example of that, and this one drives me crazy because I paddleboard on the lake in the mornings, early mornings, and by 7:30 or 8 o'clock, you know, the leaf blowers are being used 2 or 3 at a time to blow sand off our boardwalks at the waterfront. And it just doesn't make any sense. So let's think about how we can, you know, utilize brooms and other ways of naturally addressing this environment. The other thing is, if we think about partnering, and I put Living Green on here because if we look at community stewardship programming and just think about how we work together better with our community programming like Living Green, I think that's a complete no-brainer on that one. Looking at volunteers as well, training them in the basic ecology and plant identification and monitoring, and working in teams. So getting those community stewardship programs together, whether they're, you know, the tree special people or the park people, whoever they are, that are really keen and interested in helping our community naturalize our environment and look after our environment. I think, you know, engaging, again, education and engagement is a real key component of reducing our greenhouse gases as we work together as a team. Funding opportunities. I mean, I looked at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. There's a lot of different opportunities here for funding and grants. I think we need to be a little better at that. We need to be better at looking at what our grant opportunities are in these areas. And reducing fossil fuel use in fleets is a grant opportunity. And you guys probably already know this or have applied or, you know, are going through the process. And sorry if I'm duplicating here, but I just wanted to make sure that we as a city are really up on top of the grants because we've missed a couple. And I don't want to do that. If there's free money around and that money can help us, you know, reduce our greenhouse gases, we got to take advantage of that fully. So there's a lot of opportunities for grants. And again, we talked about with the Canadian Healthy Community, and the next application will open May 14th. It does close on June 25th, but it opens on May 14th. And can we as a city think about, let's put some applications in here, you know, to create safe and vibrant public spaces. I mean, you know, we can adjust our language and when we come up with these grant opportunities as well. And mobility's in here from a transportation perspective and improving health and connecting people. So this is all something that, you know, we need to do and look into as a city. So that's my little spiel. Questions?
No, that's awesome. Thank you. So great. Yeah, you think we'd figure out that new technology, brooms? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's fancy. I don't know. I don't know about that. Wilf, can you have a question?
I do. Thanks for all that, Kelly. That's awesome. Bit of a pet peeve of mine. I don't know whether this is whether the committee's got the ability to kind of maybe structure a motion that could go to council, Keenan and Anne Marie. This was something that I took on and EV Society took on in King Township a few years ago. And it began with the concept, as Kelly says, of you know, greening their fleets and really getting them off fossil fuels on their fleets. And it took an interesting turn when we really said, you know, we need to go in a direction where we stop buying assets that consume fossil fuels altogether, and started looking at things like leaf blowers, for example, and lawnmowers and so on, all of which have perfectly viable electric alternatives that are quiet and don't stink and have essentially zero carbon footprint. And it did go to council. And the interesting thing was we took a poke at it, obviously from transportation and fleet, but the thing that got the motion passed were the leaf blowers, because everybody hated them. Like there was actually like agreement in unison, like residents hated the sound and the smell, the operators hated the sound and the smell, and the vibration and the repetitive strain injuries that came from that. Like just all around, everybody had a different reason, but it was the darn leaf blowers that got a resolution passed that went something, this is from memory, so we could look this up, but it went something to the effect of, anytime the township purchases or leases any equipment, it must first consider and give priority to viable environmental options. So in other words, equipment that is electric powered rather than fossil fuel powered. And only in specific cases where there really is no alternative, let's say a heavy plow truck that just doesn't have an option, only then are they permitted to consider a fossil fuel alternative, but they really have to lead with the electric. And I wonder whether we can build on what Kelly's saying and draft a resolution like that to bring to council to say, that's it, like stop investing in fossil fuel assets, start, phase them out because they're just better in every way. Just a thought.
It's a great thought. I love that. Anne Maria, did you have something to add on that? I saw you on mute there.
Oh, I was going to say, I love it. Like, let's start that conversation more formally. So I'd be happy to support a motion if it reflects kind of moving from this committee to city, like to staff to investigate and report back to city building and help to get that broader group of councillors informed and maybe activated around this. I'm not sure how quickly that would, could take, but I would love to explore, how we start that conversion of our asset and how it ties into our asset management plan around moving towards being deliberate in that and understanding the staff operating impact. I'm not sure if staff have any other comment, considering I know it's probably going to touch our parks and forestry and other aspects, but I'm keen on this.
I see Kevin has appeared on our screen, so it looks like he might have something to add. Go ahead.
Is that usually the pop in for me putting my hand up?
It works. It's perfect.
So I will give some good news. We have been going through the process for small equipment and purchasing electric replacements for things as they wear out. So I know that I couldn't come up with the number we have now, but we've got backpack blowers and trimmers and chainsaws and other things that are available in lithium battery backpack units. So we've been doing that as they wear out or need to be replaced. We look for the electric option first because of all the main reasons that have been discussed. There is a large report that's gone to council on the larger fleet question. So your big equipment that we don't purchase, that's all purchased through the asset management and fleet group. So that's a much bigger picture end of it. But definitely on the battery powered hand tools, that's high on our priority as we replace things that we get them, because in most cases they're easier to maintain. We don't have to have fuel mixtures. So 10 years ago, we moved away from two-stroke anywhere we could and started buying four-stroke engines instead of two-stroke because of the pollution aspects of it and the mixing of fuel and handling of more fuel and additives. So we switched over to that, but they're a lot heavier. You get into a four-stroke engine, the weight of one of those, you're now better off to get a battery pack unit than a four-stroke. So those started to get a lot better, and we started doing a lot more of those replacements as well. Larger mower units are ones that definitely are a fleet question and harder to get a hold of. I'm sure they're coming with the availability a lot faster now than they were 5 years ago. So it's definitely all in the plans and the things we're doing now as a daily basis stuff. And then there was just one other thing, that there was a comment about the naturalization of parks. That is something that we've been very actively doing over the last several years, and taking areas out of mowing that we previously did and naturalizing them, planting pollinators, and getting off of fence lines everywhere we can in areas that we don't want to plant. And just to give you an idea, we've gone from, I'm going to say 7 years ago, we had 8 turf crews. And even though we have a lot more parks, we only have 6 turf crews now. And that's a lot of that has to do with reducing mowing in some of those parks that had areas that were mowed that don't need to be, or were being mowed when they didn't have to be because it was a dry part of the season. It's a quick update on that as well.
Thank you, Kevin. That's great. On that naturalization piece too, like it's sort of a larger cultural shift that needs to happen too, right? Because you won't believe the number of calls and emails I get from people who are just livid when an area hasn't been mowed and it's an eyesore. And so I think some education and awareness building on that. I think it's coming and more people are understanding, but that's definitely a barrier to continuing that work. I see a couple hands. I see Maria and then Eric Van Wiesenbeck.
Thanks. I will be brief, and it's further to both Kelly and Anne-Marie's comments, and I'm not sure if there's a council mechanism for this, but it's about that passive education piece. I know I went out to mow or to rake the yard the other day, and I got a 10-minute lecture from one of my kids about the bees, and you can't be doing it now, and walk away, mom, and put the rake down, and all this. And it's true, like it's this entire group that can influence all of us. Look at Blue Box. It's pretty much how Blue Box did it. They educated the kids, and then they pretty much shamed the adults kind of into it almost. So I think there's maybe each school can sort of adopt an area. They can do the stewardship, they can do education. So I don't know what the mechanism would be, but I think that's probably something we could look at as well to get the community involved and to help educate the adults.
Eric?
Really just echoing all that. So Kelly, thanks for initiating it with this conversation with your presentation. Kevin, the update on operations, I'm really glad to hear that, the reduction of two-stroke. But more importantly, the discussion we're having right now is reducing the need right from the get-go. Like we don't need to cut all the grass. And then Keenan, what you're talking about is education, and Maria as well, about educating and what role can we play as the committee to support getting the message out and making people think a little differently, about not needing a green front lawn, for God's sakes. Anyway, just it would be nice if we could have some influence. I don't know what, but something to think about.
Yeah. Al?
Yeah, just following up on what Eric was saying, the city of Barrie, well, I don't know, it's got to be 15 years ago, maybe more, I think, stopped spraying dandelions in city parks because, of course, the weed killers are harmful to little kids and pets and stuff. But I just learned from talking to a couple of one of our Barrie Farmers Market vendors who's a beekeeper, and another friend of mine who also keeps bees. And the bees are dependent on, they actually, right now, they're out there, they're getting their pollen from trees, but all they can get is pollen. They can't get any nectar. The first source they have in the spring is the dandelions. That's the first thing that's out in mass. So the idea of the city, not only for its own operations, but I think the city needs to be leading, promoting our natural wildflowers. And when we have problem invasive species, that's another issue that we have to deal with. And we've already, Kevin and I have had discussions on this with things like the Allendale Station naturalization area. There are some things that you don't want to have in there. Poison ivy may be a good example of that, although I think it is native actually. But and there is even a movement further afoot within Simcoe County, people who are questioning municipal maintenance things along roadsides, where they go in and either spray or cut the wildflowers that have grown up by mid in the summertime, things like sweet clover, which grows probably, 3 or 4 feet high, and a whole profusion of other things. Now, my perspective is that when you drive down those roads, that's half of the joy of it, is seeing all the color and stuff along there. But you cut them off, you're destroying the food source for our native pollinators. Mm-hmm. So the environment is all connected, and this discussion is just one more bit of proof of all that. When I looked at the item at the first, I thought, two strokes. Okay, I hadn't met Kelly before, so well, why are we not going for them all? Well, at a girl, because we really are. She'd just be subtle. And I guess maybe more of the gas-powered portable equipment is 2-stroke stuff. I don't know, because I don't have a leaf blower, and the lawnmower I bought is an electric lawnmower, so I got around all that stuff. But everything is connected, and kudos again to Kevin for outlining for us very succinctly what the city is already doing with all of this stuff. The city is leading and needs to talk up more, I think, to our citizens. This is what we're doing because it's the right thing to do. It's the sort of stuff that we need to do.
Absolutely. Al, we're just at 12:01. Yep. I'm just really aware of the time here, that I want to be respectful of staff time here. So in terms of moving forward on this, John, did you have something to add on that, or?
Sorry, just one quick thing. Just wasn't sure if the yard maintenance bylaw is something we might want to look at with this too. I'm not sure how that plays into it with stuff that's not currently permitted by the bylaw, but maybe it's something we should be encouraging.
That's a great question. Yeah, it sounds like we kind of need a bit of a deeper conversation about this. And it sounds like the work on the small engines is already happening. So it doesn't sound like we really need that direction. It sounds like the phase out is naturally happening, if that's what I'm hearing from you, Kevin, that you are kind of phasing them out already. Okay. So maybe we need a larger conversation on this piece at our next meeting at the top of our agenda. Because we were a bit rushed here. Wilf, did you have something to add before we?
Yeah, very, very quickly, Keenan, if you could just capture for that continued conversation, how we can take this conversation out and extend beyond just the city itself and reach the residents to do that education and change that mindset.
Okay. All right, that's great.
And quickly, Keenan.
Yes, Anne-Marie, go ahead.
Could we ask staff to circulate the bylaw that John referenced to the committee, just for ease of access and reference before our next meeting's conversation?
I guess that would be, is that property standards, the property standards bylaw, or?
There's a yard maintenance 211-107. Is that, I don't know if that's, I just did a quick check, but maybe another
I believe it's a separate one from,
right.
But I'll send it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have a few agenda items that we haven't gotten to, so we'll have this one at the top of our list for next time. There's the pollinator gardens on bus stops, which kind of ties into this one pretty nicely. So we'll have that conversation as well next time. The urban design guidelines, we're waiting on the new draft, the second draft of the official plan before we continue that review. So we're kind of just waiting on that one for now. The web page, go ahead.
If I may too, and I'll leave it to you and Tara, but I had engaged staff prior. They said, don't wait for that new draft to come out. So if there's something that this committee wants, to request it, and they could provide it in advance, but they did recommend not necessarily waiting to the May release.
Okay, so I'll touch base with Tyler, who had interest in these, specifically the urban design guidelines, and I think there was maybe someone else as well. So I'll get that subcommittee together in the meantime to do that work. Thank you for that, Anne-Marie. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I did manage to have a conversation with Thomas Weirs about the official plan and the urban design guidelines. So if you want to give me a call, I can fill you in on that, what's happening, because they're sort of separate tracking those a little bit.
Right. Okay. Yep. I'll give you a call at some point. Thank you, Al. And then there are a couple of other pieces, the webpage and the bicycle-friendly community designation. And I would just remind the committee members that we have been sent the previous applications for the bicycle-friendly communities initiative, and there's a lot of great information there on where the city's falling behind. And I'm thinking we can maybe pick an area of focus. Kelly, did you have a question on that?
I don't have that information. Is that available?
Yes, yeah, I'll forward it to you. Yeah, it might have been sent actually before you were officially a member,
Okay.
so I'll send that out for sure. And then maybe we can take a look at that and have a conversation about specific areas of focus that we can make a real impact in the short term, because I have a feeling we might not be ready to apply for that designation quite yet. Might not be worth it yet. Anything else before we adjourn for this month? Emery.
Just a quick action, and sorry if I just missed that. I think it was John, myself, Kelly, and yourself then. So is our staff setting up that meeting, or is that you, Keenan?
I think I was going to and then totally dropped the ball. So if you guys want to set it up amongst yourself, I think that would probably be best. You're talking about the bicycle friendly community?
Yes, yeah. I wasn't sure if that was going out before the next meeting.
If you wouldn't mind setting like that group sort of getting together as a subcommittee, maybe, is that something that's workable?
I think so. I think that was the action for us to take that away and review the documentation that was provided. Okay. So I'm assuming we're going to try and do that get together before the next meeting, and then maybe have an item on the agenda that's kind of a commentary maybe from that small working group.
Sure, that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Tara, are you able to set that up, or do you want that taken off your to-do list and you want us to self-manage that?
Yeah, if for subcommittee stuff, if you guys could manage that, thank you.
Okay, I'll send out an email. If there was anyone else, let me know, but I've got John, Kelly, myself, and Keenan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll send an email about the subcommittee about the urban design guidelines in the OP. So Al, John, Tyler, and myself, and maybe Sherry if she's around, although I'm sure she's still tied up with vaccinations. One last thing, Eric Jacoby Hawkins had the piece around Living Green being a sort of organizational appointment to the committee. We're going to have a formal motion. I was chatting with Tara on the side a bit about it. We're going to have a formal motion for that prepared for next month, and then we can actually change our terms of reference through a motion to council as needed, and we can make sure we're doing that following the proper process.
Sure. Do you want me to circulate a letter ahead of time?
Yeah, if you could send that to Tara, that would be fantastic, so that we can work that out.
Yeah.
Will do.
And can I just one note, just to make sure when you're doing your subcommittees that you don't have quorum for the committee.
Right.
Make sure it's under. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no illegal meetings here. All right. Anything else before we adjourn? No, looking good. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to all the staff who are here today to answer questions and provide input. We really, really appreciate it. And we will see you next month.
I move to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, Eric. All right. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.